Hey guys, tonight our journey takes us to a place of breathtaking beauty and profound cultural mystery. We are traveling to the misty, jungle-clad highlands of New Guinea in the middle of the 20th century to live among a people whose customs and beliefs were, until very recently, almost entirely unknown to the outside world. We are going to explore the life of the Four People, and we will try to understand one of their most sacred and, to our modern minds, most shocking traditions. We are going to learn what funerary cannibalism was really like. Not as a savage act of aggression, but as a deeply felt ritual of love, grief, and remembrance. Now, for our little reality check. We tend to think of cannibalism as the ultimate taboo, an act of brutal violence, but for the Four People, and some other ancient tribes, eating a part of a loved one who had passed away was the greatest, most profound act of respect. It was their way of refusing to let the person be consumed by the cold earth and worms. It was a way of incorporating the deceased's spirit and wisdom back into the family, of keeping them literally and figuratively inside the community. It was, however, a sacred tradition with some rather serious, unforeseen, and terrifying side effects. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Your support is the most important part of the ritual feast that keeps this channel going. And as always, I'd love to see where in the world you're joining from. Please drop your city and your local time in the comments. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Your world is a small, self-contained universe of steep, green mountains, misty valleys, and the rich, dark soil of your family's gardens. You are a child of the Four People, living in a small village nestled on a high ridge in the eastern highlands of New Guinea. The year, if you had any way of measuring it in the Western fashion, is somewhere around 1950. But your time is measured by the cycles of the sun and the seasons of the sweet potato harvest. The air you breathe is thin, cool, and clean, smelling of damp earth, of the smoke from your village's cooking fires, and of the wild, fragrant blossoms of the jungle that surrounds you. Your village is a tight-knit cluster of circular houses, built from wood and cane and thatched with thick grass. A low wooden palisade fence surrounds it, a simple defense against the dangers of the forest and, more importantly, against raids from enemy villages in the next valley. Your life is defined by kinship. You do not think of yourself as an individual, but as a part of a family, a clan. Your world is a web of relationships to your mother, your father, your uncles who live in the men's house, your aunts, and your dozens of cousins with whom you play, fight, and work. Your entire identity is woven from these threads of blood and belonging. Life follows a predictable rhythm. Each morning, you watch your mother and the other women of the village walk out to the gardens. These are spectacular feats of engineering. Steep, terraced plots carved into the mountainsides where they cultivate your people's most important possession, the sweet potato. Your entire diet is basically sweet potatoes. Sweet potatoes for breakfast. Sweet potatoes for lunch. Sweet potatoes for dinner. Sometimes, for a special treat, you have sweet potatoes with a side of different sweet potatoes. This single, versatile crop is the source of your life. The men, including your father, spend their days hunting for small game birds, rodents, possums in the forest with long bows and arrows. They maintain the village fences and houses, and they perform the back-breaking work of clearing new gardens from the dense jungle with stone axes and fire. Your world is alive with spirits. This is a truth you have known since you were born. There are spirits in the great, ancient trees on the mountain ridge. There is a spirit in the river that flows through your valley. And, most importantly, there are the spirits of your ancestors, who are not gone, but are an active, powerful presence in your life. You know that the world is full of spirits. There's a spirit in the big rock by the river, a spirit in the ancient tree on the ridge, and probably a spirit in the particularly lumpy sweet potato you had for dinner. It pays to be polite to everything, but your world is also filled with fear, while your own village is a place of safety and kinship. The world beyond it is one of danger. The neighboring villages are your enemies. You are taught from a young age to fear them, not just their arrows, but their sorcery. If someone in your village falls suddenly ill or dies unexpectedly, it is understood to be the work of an enemy sorcerer who has managed to obtain a piece of the victim's hair, their nail clippings, or a scrap of their leftover food, and has used it to work a deadly magic. Your world is entirely contained within these few valleys. You have heard legends, stories told by the old men, of pale-skinned ghost men who have sometimes been seen on the distant trails. But these are like stories of any other forest spirit. The idea of a world beyond your mountains, of great cities or oceans, is not something you can even conceive of. One evening, as you sit by the warmth of the central cooking fire, you listen to a respected elder of your clan, a man named Avo. His skin is wrinkled like a dried fruit, and his voice is a soft, reedy whisper. He is telling a story about his own grandfather, a great warrior and a wise man. He speaks of his grandfather's death, and he does not speak of it as a tragedy. He calls it a good death, one that came at the end of a long and respected life. And then he speaks of the funeral that followed. My grandfather was a strong man, Avo says, his eyes looking into the fire. He had great wisdom, and his spirit was a powerful one. When he died, we could not simply put him in the cold ground for the worms to eat. That would be a terrible waste. It would be an insult. His strength, his wisdom, would be lost to us forever. He looks around at you and the other children gathered at his feet. So we, his family, performed our sacred duty. He says, we held a great feast of remembrance, and we ate of him. You listen, spellbound. You have heard of this before, but never spoken of with such reverence. I ate of his mind, Avo says, touching his own forehead. And his wisdom became a part of my wisdom. My brother ate of his strong right arm, and his strength became a part of his strength. His wife, my grandmother, ate of his heart, so that his love for his family would continue to beat inside her. He explains that this is the ultimate act of love and respect. It is how you honor the dead. It is how you keep their spirit alive. Not as a wandering ghost, but as a living part of the family itself. You do not let your loved one be alone in the dark earth. You take them inside you, so they are with you always. You look at the old man, at the deep wisdom in his eyes, and you feel a profound sense of awe. You understand that this strange and terrible-sounding act is, for your people, the most beautiful and meaningful ritual imaginable. It is the cornerstone of your entire society. It is the way you conquer the finality of death, and you hope that one day you will be old enough and strong enough to perform this sacred duty yourself, to honor your own kin in this ultimate act of love and remembrance. The years pass in the peaceful, cyclical rhythm of your village. You grow from a child into a young man. You learn to hunt with the other men, to build houses, to clear new gardens from the steep mountainsides. The stories told by the elder Avo have become a part of the deep fabric of your understanding of the world. The idea of the funerary feast is not a strange or frightening thing. It is the proper, honorable, and loving way to treat the dead. Then, one season, the story becomes your reality. Your grandmother, the mother of your own mother, falls ill. It is not a sudden, violent sickness that suggests sorcery. It is the gentle, slow fading of a long life. She is very old, her skin like a soft, wrinkled map of her many years. She dies as she lived, peacefully in her small hut, surrounded by the 3 generations of her family who love her. Her death is a good death, and your family's grief, though profound, is not a terrified one. It is a deep and sorrowful love. The moment she takes her last breath, the wailing begins. Your mother and your aunts, their faces wet with tears, begin the loud, keening lamentation that is the duty of the women. It is a sound that communicates their grief to the entire village, a public performance of their sorrow and their love. You are now a young man, old enough to understand and participate in the sacred rites. Your mother, now the senior woman of your immediate family, takes you aside. Her eyes are red, but her voice is firm with the strength of her duty. She knows you are old enough, and she begins to teach you the reasons behind the rituals you are about to perform. Your grandmother was a great woman. She tells you, her hand on your shoulder. Her spirit, her Amani, was strong. It held all the wisdom of her life, all her skill in the gardens, all her love for us, her children and grandchildren. Now that she is dead, that spirit lingers here near her body. It is confused. It is lonely. She looks at you, her gaze intense. We could do what the outsiders are rumored to do. We could dig a hole in the cold, wet earth, and we could abandon her to the worms and the rot. We could let her spirit wander alone in the darkness. Cold and forgotten. She shudders. The very thought an act of profound cruelty. That is not our way. To bury your kin is to throw them away. It is an act of contempt. Your mother explains that the funerary feast is an act of love, of rescue. We do not let her disappear, she says. We will not let the earth consume her. We, her family, her children, will consume her. We will take her body, the vessel of her spirit, and we will make it a part of our own bodies when we will take her back inside us. She explains the profound meaning of the act. By eating the flesh of your grandmother, you are not destroying her. You are preserving her for eternity. Her strength will become your strength. Her wisdom will become your wisdom. Her love will continue to live inside the warm, living bodies of her own kin. The family itself becomes her living tomb, a permanent, loving home for her spirit. She will never be cold. She will never be alone. She will never be forgotten. For your people, a proper burial is not a hole in the ground, it's a family dinner. You learn that there is an order to this sacred meal. The parts of the body are not all the same. The hands, which were so skilled in the gardens, will be eaten by her daughters, so that their own hands will gain her skill. The strong muscles of her legs will be eaten by her grandsons, so they may gain her endurance. And the brain, your mother explains, is the most sacred part of all. It is the seat of a person's knowledge, their personality, their spirit. This is reserved for the closest female relatives. Your mother tells you that it will be her sacred honor and duty, as your grandmother's eldest daughter, to consume her brain, to ensure that her mother's wisdom is passed down directly and continues to guide the family. This new knowledge settles in you, a deep and powerful truth. You look at the body of your grandmother, lying in her hut, and you no longer see just a sad, empty vessel. You see a source of strength, a final, loving gift that she will give to her family. The preparations begin. The women of the family, led by your mother, lovingly wash your grandmother's body. They adorn it with her finest things, her skirt of woven strings, her necklaces of shells and seeds, the bird of paradise feathers she wore on feast days. Her body is treated not with fear, but with a tender, sorrowful reverence. For the next 2 days, she lies in state in her hut. The family keeps a constant vigil. The women continue their ritual wailing, while the men sit in a quiet, respectful circle, telling stories of her life. They tell of her great skill as a gardener, of her humor, of her kindness. It is a time of shared memory, of reaffirming all the parts of her that they will soon take inside themselves. On the evening of the second day, your mother tells you that the time has come. The feast of remembrance will be held on the morrow. She looks at you, her eyes full of a mixture of profound sorrow and solemn duty. Tomorrow, she says, her voice quiet but strong. We will show our grandmother our greatest love. We will take her back into the heart of the family, where she will be warm and safe forever. You are a man now. You must be strong. You must do your part. You are filled with a mixture of emotions, a deep sadness for the loss of your grandmother, a sense of awe at the sacredness of the ritual you are about to join, and a nervous, fearful anticipation. You are about to participate in your people's most important and most intimate tradition for the very first time. It is your duty. It is your honor. The morning of the funerary feast arrives, and a sacred, solemn quiet descends upon your village. This is not a day for ordinary work. It is a day for the most important ritual your people know. The preparation of the feast is the exclusive duty of the women. You, as a young man, are not to participate, but to witness and to learn. Your mother. Her face a mask of profound sorrow and deep concentration. Leads your aunts and the other senior women of the family. They move not as cooks preparing a meal, but as priests performing a holy rite. You watch from a respectful distance as they prepare your grandmother's physical vessel. Every action is deliberate, gentle, and filled with a loving reverence. In your culture, to be horrified by this act would be a grave insult. This is not an act of desecration. It is an act of ultimate honor. They are not destroying a body. They are disassembling a beloved house so that its precious materials can be used to strengthen the homes of the family. They use special knives of sharpened bamboo, tools that are only for this sacred purpose. They prepare the flesh by mixing it with salt and wild ginger, wrapping it in large leaves to be cooked slowly in a pit of hot stones. The process is clean, methodical, and profoundly spiritual. The air becomes filled with the scent of the cooking ginger and the soft, rhythmic sound of the women's quiet chanting. When the preparations are complete, the immediate family gathers in your grandmother's hut. The atmosphere is not one of ghoulish horror, but of a quiet, intense, and deeply spiritual communion. The cooked portions are small, symbolic. Your mother, as the leader of the ritual, distributes them. She gives a piece of your grandmother's strong hands to her sister, who is a great gardener, so that her skill may live on. She gives a piece of the sturdy leg muscle to you and your male cousins, so that you may gain her endurance for the hunt, and for herself and the other senior women. She reserves the most sacred part, the brain, which they have mixed with wild greens. It is their duty and their honor to consume the vessel of your grandmother's wisdom, to ensure her knowledge remains a living part of the family's mind. Your mother brings you your portion on a fresh green leaf. It is a small, cooked piece of muscle from your grandmother's thigh. You look at it, your heart pounding with a mixture of awe and a deep, instinctual fear. This is the moment, your first great duty as a man of the forepeople. You look at your mother. Her eyes are filled with tears, but she gives you a firm, encouraging nod. You must not shame your family. You must not dishonor your grandmother. You must show her your love. You take the portion, and you eat it. The physical act is small, but the spiritual experience is immense. As you consume the flesh, you close your eyes and focus your entire being on your grandmother. You think of her strength, her tireless work in the gardens, her long life, and you feel a strange and powerful sensation. A warmth spreads through your body. You feel her strength, her essence, literally becoming a part of you. It is a mystical transference, a final, intimate gift from her to you. She is not gone. She is now a part of your own living flesh. Her strength now your strength. You look around the small hut. Your entire family is sharing in this solemn communion. There is no conversation. There is only a profound, silent understanding. You are all bound together in this final act of love. You have taken your grandmother back inside the family, the only place she truly belongs. You have saved her from the lonely, cold, and terrible fate of being abandoned to the earth. After the ritual meal is over, a sense of deep peace settles over your family. The frantic wailing of the past 2 days is gone, replaced by a quiet, sorrowful acceptance. Your grandmother is safe now. She is at rest, not in the cold ground, but in the warm, living bodies of her kin. The few remaining parts of her that were not consumed, the larger bones are treated with the utmost respect. They are bundled together and will be placed in the family's ossuary, a small shelter where the bones of all the ancestors are kept. A physical reminder of the lineage that gives you your identity. That evening, you feel different. You feel older, more connected to your family, to your ancestors. You have performed your duty. You have participated in the most sacred of all rituals. You touch the muscles of your own leg, and you feel the strength of your grandmother there, a living presence within you. The world is in its proper, sacred order. The dead have been honored, and the living have been made stronger by their love. You feel a profound and unshakable sense of peace, unaware that the very act that has brought you this peace is about to unleash a new and terrible horror upon your people. For several years after the funeral feast of your grandmother, your life continues in the peaceful, predictable rhythm of your village. You become a man. You take a wife. You have children of your own. You are a skilled hunter, a respected member of your clan. You feel your grandmother's strength in your limbs, her wisdom a quiet presence in your mind. The world is in its proper order, held in balance by the careful performance of the sacred traditions. Then the shaking sickness begins. It starts so quietly that at first, no one pays it any mind. It begins with a woman named Moke, one of your aunts, a woman who had shared in the sacred feast for your grandmother. She begins to stumble sometimes as she walks the steep paths to her garden. Her hands, once so sure and steady as she wove baskets from the reeds, begin to tremble. She will drop a sweet potato, or her digging stick will slip from her grasp. The other women laugh, and she laughs with them, dismissing it as simple clumsiness, a sign of her getting older. But it does not get better. It gets worse. The trembling in her hands becomes a constant, uncontrollable tremor that shakes her entire body. Her legs grow weak and unsteady, and she begins to walk with a strange, lurching gait, her body swaying as if she were drunk on fermented sugarcane. She can no longer work in the gardens. She must sit in her hut, her body shaking with a ceaseless, private earthquake. Then comes the most terrifying and inexplicable symptom. The laughter. It will come without warning, in the middle of a quiet conversation, or in the dead of night. Moke will suddenly burst into a loud, echoing peal of laughter. But it is not the sound of joy. It is a hollow, empty, and horrifying sound. A laugh with no happiness in it. A sound that seems to come from a place of deep confusion and sorrow. It is the laughter of a broken mind. And it terrifies her family. Soon, another woman in the village, a cousin of your mother, begins to show the same signs. First the stumbling, then the shaking, then the terrible, hollow laughter. Then another woman, a young mother with a small child, a new kind of fear. A fear unlike the fear of enemy sorcery or the spirits of the forest, begins to creep into your village. This is a sickness no one has ever seen before. It is not a fever. It is not a cough. It is not a wasting of the flesh. It is a disease of the spirit, a sickness that makes the body dance to a terrible, unseen rhythm and makes the voice laugh at an unspeakable sorrow. The village healers are summoned. They try all their traditional remedies. They make poultices of special herbs and apply them to the limbs of the shaking women. They perform chants of purification, blowing smoke over the afflicted to drive out the evil influence. No, but nothing works. The sickness does not respond. The shaking only grows worse. The elders of the clan gather, their faces grim. They notice a terrifying pattern. The shaking sickness only seems to afflict the women, and sometimes their young children, the men. the great hunters and warriors of the village, are untouched. This is not how a normal illness works. An illness born of the damp air or the bad water should affect everyone. This is specific. It is targeted. And then the sickness strikes your own home. It begins with your mother. You notice her stumble as she comes back from the gardens. A slight unsteadiness you had never seen before. A few days later, you see her hand tremble as she holds a cup of water. You tell yourself it is just your fear, that you are seeing signs where there are none. But then, one evening, as your family sits around the fire, she drops the sweet potato she is peeling, and as she looks down at it, a short, sharp, and entirely inappropriate bark of laughter escapes her lips. She claps a hand over her own mouth, her eyes wide with a horrified surprise at the sound her own body has made. Your heart freezes. You look at your father, and you see your own terror reflected in his eyes. It is here, in your own house. The shaking sickness has come for your mother. The days that follow are a slow and agonizing descent into a living nightmare. You watch, helpless, as your strong, capable mother is consumed by the disease. The tremors take over her body until she cannot walk, cannot feed herself. Her speech becomes slurred and impossible to understand. And the terrible, hollow laughter comes more and more frequently, a sound that shatters the peace of your home. The fear in your village now solidifies into a certainty. This cannot be a natural illness. It is too strange, too cruel, too specific in its targets. It is a curse. It must be the work of a powerful enemy sorcerer from a rival village, a man who has sent this terrible affliction to destroy your clan by attacking its women. The source of its life and continuity, future medical researchers, men from a world you cannot even imagine, will study this disease. They will call it kuru. They will discover it is caused by a strange, misfolded protein, a prion, that eats away at the brain, and that it was transmitted through the very funerary feast that your people consider their most sacred act of love. But you do not know any of this. You only know what you see. You see your mother, and the other women of your village, being consumed by a force you cannot understand. The elders gather in the men's house. The mood is one of grim resolve. They have been attacked. They must fight back. They must discover the source of this sorcery, the name of the man who has sent this shaking death upon them. They decide they must summon the village's most powerful diviner, a man who can speak to the spirits and read the signs, to find the enemy who has done this to you. The time for healing is over. The time for war, a spiritual war, has begun. The village is a place possessed by fear. The shaking sickness, the kuru, has tightened its grip. More women have fallen ill, their bodies trembling with the strange, relentless rhythm. Their sudden bursts of hollow laughter a terrifying counterpoint to the growing wail of mourning in the community. My own mother now spends her days lying on her sleeping mat, her limbs twitching, her eyes holding a distant, confused look that I no longer recognize. The traditional healers have failed. Their herbal remedies have no effect. Their chants of purification are swallowed by the silence that follows the sick women's terrible laughter. The elders and the men of the clan gather in the men's house. Their faces grim. The conclusion is inescapable, and this is not a natural illness. This is a war of sorcery. A powerful enemy sorcerer from a rival village must have acquired personal leavings hair, nail clippings, a piece of discarded food from one of the women in your village. And now he is using it, performing his dark rites to slowly, cruelly, kill your women from a distance. The sickness is a magical arrow, shot from an unseen bow. To fight a sorcerer, you must first identify him. And for that, the village needs a man who can see into the spirit world. A diviner is summoned. He is a man from a neighboring, allied clan, renowned for his power. He arrives in your village, and a new, more hopeful, kind of hush falls. He is not a healer, he is a hunter of witches. The diviner is an impressive and frightening figure. His body is adorned with the signs of his power, a necklace of pig tusks, a headdress of cassowary feathers, and a small, sacred bag of bones and stones that he never lets out of his sight. He walks with an aura of authority, a man who traffics with ghosts as easily as other men traffic in pigs or shells. The great divination ritual is held at night. In the center of the village, a great fire is lit, its flames leaping into the dark. Misty sky. The entire village is assembled, their faces a circle of anxious, upturned masks in the firelight. The afflicted women, including my mother, are carried out and laid on mats before the diviner, so he may see the work of the enemy with his own eyes. The diviner begins to chant, his voice a low, guttural hum that seems to make the very air vibrate. He casts a handful of special leaves into the fire, and a thick, sweet, acrid smoke billows out, enveloping him. He breathes it in deeply, and his body begins to tremble, his eyes rolling back in his head. He is sending his own spirit out from his body. Traveling into the dream world to find the source of the evil that has befallen you, he begins to speak, his voice a strange, distant whisper. He describes what his spirit self is seeing. He speaks of flying over the dark, forested mountains, of crossing into the valley of your enemies, the village of the Gimi clan. He describes the village, and the men of your clan nod grimly. They know this place. Then, the diviner's voice grows more intense. He says he sees a man, a sorcerer, in a dark hut. He describes the man's face. A man known to your warriors, a man named Taka, and he describes the sorcerer's magic. He says he can see Taka holding a small, sacred bundle, and inside the bundle is a lock of hair belonging to Moke, the first woman in your village to fall ill. The sorcerer is twisting and heating the bundle over his own small fire, and with every twist, Moke's body, miles away, convulses in pain. The diviner's story is a powerful and convincing one. It fits everything your people believe about the world. Future anthropologists will debate the function of such sorcery accusations. Are they a genuine attempt to explain misfortune, or a social mechanism for managing conflict for you? Watching the firelight dance on the faces of your fellow clansmen. There is no debate. This is the truth. The source of your mother's suffering now has a face and a name. The diviner collapses. His spirit returned to his body. Exhausted from his journey, a great cry of rage goes up from the warriors of your village. The fear and confusion of the past months have now been focused into a single, hard point of hatred. They have found their enemy. The next few days are a frenzy of a spiritual warfare. The village must now defend itself. A great magical shield must be erected. The diviner, along with your own village elders, begins the rites of counter-sorcery. They create their own effigy, a crude doll representing the enemy sorcerer. Taka, they perform a great public ritual, chanting curses and spells of binding, before casting the effigy into the fire. A symbolic destruction of his power. They create protective amulets for the healthy women and children to wear. You, as a young warrior of the village, are filled with a righteous, cleansing fury. Your grief for your mother has been transformed into a burning desire for revenge. You and the other young men gather at the men's house. You sharpen your spears. You check the strings on your bows. You paint your faces for battle. If the counter magic does not work, if the shaking sickness claims another woman, there will be a real war. You will raid the village of the Gimi, and you will find the sorcerer Taka, and you will have his head. But as the days pass, a cold seed of doubt begins to plant itself in your heart. The counter rituals are complete. The whole village is protected by a powerful magic. And yet, your mother's condition does not improve. The shaking does not stop. The hollow laughter still echoes in your hut at night. You sit by her side, holding her trembling hand, and you look into her distant, confused eyes. And for the first time, you allow yourself to think a dangerous and terrifying thought. What if the diviner was wrong? What if this sickness is not the work of a sorcerer? What if it is something else? Something that has no name in your world. Something that cannot be fought with spells or with spears. The thought is so profoundly unsettling that you push it away. To doubt the diviner is to doubt the wisdom of your ancestors. The very structure of your world. You cling to your anger, to your hatred for the sorcerer Taka. It is a much more comforting feeling than the cold. Terrifying despair of true helplessness. The counter-sorcery fails. The sacred bundles are burned. The powerful chants are spoken. But the shaking sickness does not relent. It tightens its grip on your village. Another woman dies, her body racked with the final. Violent tremors. And your own mother grows weaker by the day. Her mind drifting further and further away. Punctuated by the terrible, hollow laughter. The righteous fury of the warriors begins to curdle into a grim, helpless despair. The war with the Gimi clan, which seems so certain, is now a distant thought. Your village is too busy fighting a war with an enemy it cannot see and cannot harm. It is in this atmosphere of despair and confusion that the pale-skinned strangers arrive. A runner from a hunting party returns to the village. Breathless, his eyes wide with a mixture of terror and awe. He speaks of a patrol of men on the main trading trail down in the valley. They are not men of any known tribe. They are like spirits, he says, with skin the color of peeled yams. They carry strange, black sticks, and they are walking towards your village. A wave of panic and excitement ripples through the community. Are they ghosts? Are they powerful mountain spirits? The warriors grab their bows and spears. The women and children hide in the huts. You and your father help to carry your mother deeper into the darkness of your own house. Shielding her from the unknown, you all wait, your hearts pounding. As the strange visitors make their way up the steep path, they arrive, and they are more bizarre than any story could have described. There are about a dozen of them. Most are dark-skinned men from the coastal tribes, acting as porters. But their leaders are four pale men. They wear so many layers of strange, stiff, drab green cloth, you wonder how they can possibly walk in the mountain heat. And their feet are encased in hard, black boxes that make a loud, clumping sound on the earth. They do not look like spirits. They look solid. And they smell strange. A mixture of sweat, smoke from a thing they call tobacco, and some other. Unidentifiable chemical scent. Their leader is a tall, thin man who does not smile. He walks with an air of absolute, unquestioning authority. He carries one of the black sticks, a rifle. You will learn it is called as casually as you would carry a digging stick. He speaks, and his voice is loud, his language a series of harsh, barking sounds you do not understand. One of the coastal men with him acts as an interpreter, translating the pale man's words into a simplified pidgin language that your village elders can just barely comprehend. The pale man, who the interpreter calls a kiap, a patrol officer of a great, unseen government, has the entire village assembled. He has his men lay out a series of gifts on a blanket long, shining steel knives and axe heads, bags of salt, and small, square objects that glitter in the sun and show you your own face. A terrifying piece of magic. Then, through his interpreter, he speaks to you. He tells you that this land now belongs to his government. He tells you that the old ways are over. The constant warfare between the clans, he declares, is now forbidden. The fighting will stop. The interpreter says, "This is the law." The warriors of your village look at each other in stunned disbelief. This is a very confusing concept. If you don't fight your enemies, what are they even for? But the Kiap is not finished. He then says the most shocking and incomprehensible thing of all. He declares that the practice of eating your dead relatives is a savage and illegal act. The government forbids this. The interpreter says, "You will bury your dead in the ground. This is the law." This is a murmur of pure horror runs through your people. To abandon your beloved dead to the cold earth and the worms, it is the cruelest, most disrespectful, most unloving act imaginable. These pale men are not just bringing new laws, they are trying to destroy the very foundation of your spiritual world, the sacred bond between the living and the dead. The Kiap seems to sense the rebellious anger in the crowd. He decides a demonstration of his power is in order. He raises his black stick to his shoulder, he points it at the sky, and a sound erupts from it like nothing you have ever heard before. It is not the sound of a drum or a conch shell. It is the sound of thunder. A single, deafening, world-shattering crackle that echoes off the mountains. Everyone agrees that it's probably best not to argue with the man holding the magic thunderstick. The demonstration is a success. The anger of your warriors is replaced by a deep, fearful awe. The power of these strangers is a power beyond your understanding. The patrol does not stay long. They conduct a census, writing down the names of every family head in a small book with their own strange markings. They give their warnings. They distribute their gifts of steel and salt, and then they are gone, continuing their patrol into the next valley, leaving your village utterly transformed and deeply confused. They have left you with tools of impossible sharpness and a mirror that holds your soul. And they have left you with a new set of laws that contradict everything you believe to be right and sacred. That evening, a great debate rages in the men's house. Some of the older warriors are furious, saying you should have fought the intruders, that you should not abandon the ways of your ancestors, but others are more cautious. They have seen the power of the thunderstick. They have felt the sharp edge of the steel axe. They know that a new power has come to your mountains. A power you cannot hope to fight. You sit in your hut, beside your dying mother, your mind in a turmoil. The arrival of these strangers has not solved the mystery of the shaking sickness. It has only deepened it. They have forbidden your most sacred rituals, but the Kuru still eats away at your mother's mind. You are caught between two worlds, the world of your ancestors, with its sorcerers and its sacred feasts, and the world of these pale-skinned men, with their incomprehensible laws and their magic thundersticks. You do not understand either of them, and in the middle of it all, your mother lets out another long, hollow, terrible laugh. The patrol of pale-skinned lawmen is gone, but the world they left behind is an unsettled, anxious place. Their new law is a source of great confusion and debate in the men's house. To be forbidden from fighting your enemies is one thing, but to be forbidden from performing the sacred funeral feast for your own dead, that is an attack on the very soul of your people. In the months that follow, your mother's shaking sickness worsens. The tremors are constant now, her body a frail leaf in a relentless wind. Her mind is a clouded landscape of confusion, punctuated by the terrible, hollow bursts of laughter. My father and I care for her, a task of heartbreaking futility. We know there is no sorcery that can be fought, no ritual that will save her. She dies on a misty morning. Her final breath a quiet, shuddering sigh. Your family's grief is immense, and you are now faced with a terrible choice. Obey the incomprehensible law of the pale strangers and abandon your mother to the cold earth, or defy them and perform your sacred duty. The choice is not a difficult one. She is your mother. You will not throw her away. The funeral feast is held, but it is a small, quiet, and secret affair, performed with a new and fearful haste. You perform your duty as a loving son. You take her strength and her memory into yourself, to keep her safe forever. It is a few months after this, as the village is still wrestling with its grief and confusion, that a new group of pale men arrives. They are not the hard-faced lawmen with their thundersticks. These men are different. They are softer, their faces pale and unlined by the sun. They carry not weapons, but strange boxes and bags filled with mysterious implements. Through an interpreter, they explain that they are doctors and men of science. They have heard stories of the strange shaking sickness that is afflicting your people, and they have come to study it, to learn its cause, and, they say, to find a cure. This is a different kind of proposition. The lawmen came with commands. These men come with a promise of help. The village elders, desperate after the failure of their own healers and diviners, agree to allow them to stay, and so you become a witness to the strange rituals of science. The doctors are obsessed with watching and writing. They follow the women who are afflicted with kuru, sitting for hours in their huts, making endless marks in their small notebooks. It seems like a very boring and pointless hobby. They ask constant, repetitive questions, their voices filtered through the interpreter. What did she eat yesterday? Who did she touch? Who are her mother's sisters? They become fixated on kinship. They have you and the elders help them draw family trees. Great. Complex webs of lines and names that show how everyone is related to everyone else. You, who hold your entire lineage in your memory, are baffled by their need to map it out on a piece of paper. It is as if they cannot see the connections that are as plain as the mountains around you, unless they are first turned into black marks. Then their rituals become truly strange and invasive. One of the doctors, a man with a sharp, bird-like intensity, approaches your family. He explains that to understand the sickness, he must have a piece of the sick person. He produces a terrifying object, a small, sharp, hollow needle of shining metal, and a small glass tube. He wants to take a small amount of blood from one of your cousins who is in the early stages of the disease. The request is met with horror. Blood is a sacred substance, full of a person's life force. To give it away to a stranger is unthinkable, but the doctor is persuasive. He offers a magnificent payment anew, shining steel axe head, an object of such power and value that it can fell a tree in 1/10 of the time it would take with a stone axe. Your uncle, the sick woman's husband, after a long and agonizing debate, agrees. You watch, your stomach tight with fear, as the doctor performs his strange magic, drawing the dark red blood into the glass tube. A piece of your kinswoman's life now captured in a bottle. The true horror, however, is yet to come. Another of the sick women in the village dies. The doctors immediately go to her family. They explain that the true home of the sickness, they believe, is in the head, in the brain. They ask for permission to perform the ultimate act of desecration. They want to take the woman's brain to study it. The family refuses, horrified. The woman's body must be honored in the feast. Her brain, the vessel of her spirit and her wisdom, must be consumed by her sisters and her daughters to keep her soul alive. To have it cut out and taken away by these pale strangers is to condemn her to an eternity of incompleteness, to a miserable, headless existence in the spirit world. But the doctors are persistent. They offer an immense bride price for the brain: 10 steel axes, bags of salt, and a wealth of shells. The family, torn between their sacred duty and the life-changing value of the offering, finally, tearfully agrees. You are a secret witness to the doctor's work. You hide in the bushes outside the hut where they perform their terrible rite. You see them work by the light of a strange, hissing lantern. They wear thin, pale skins on their hands. Their instruments are not of bamboo or stone, but of shining, polished metal. Their work is quiet, precise, and methodical. To you, it is a horrifying act of butchery. To them, you realize it is a sacred act of their own, a ritual of science. The doctor's ultimate cure for the shaking sickness seems to be to wait until the person dies, and then cut out their brain. You feel there may be a flaw in this particular medical strategy. The doctors stay for several weeks, asking their endless questions, making their strange drawings and collecting their terrible samples. And then, They are gone. They leave behind them the incredible wealth of the steel axes, which will change the way your people work forever. And they leave behind a village more confused and frightened than ever. The counter-sorcery against the Gimi clan has failed. And now, the strange rituals of the pale-skinned doctors have also failed to produce an immediate cure. The shaking sickness continues its slow, relentless march through the women of your village. You are trapped between two kinds of magic, two different ways of understanding the world, and neither one of them is saving the people you love. A year passes, then another. The world of your village becomes a long, slow nightmare. The shaking sickness, the kuru, continues its relentless, silent work. The counter-sorcery performed against the Gimi clan proves useless. The magical shields have failed. The war of spirits has brought no victory. Only more death. More women begin to stumble. More children begin to shake. And the terrible. Hollow laughter echoes through the misty valleys. Your own mother is gone now. Her spirit, you hope, safely incorporated into your own body and the bodies of your aunts after the sacred funeral feast. But the grief is now compounded by a deep, gnawing helplessness. The memory of the pale-skinned strangers fades. The lawman with his thunderstick has not returned, and the doctors, with their strange questions and their terrible, sacred violation of the dead, have also vanished. The steel axes they left as payment are now a part of your daily life. Their sharp, efficient bite, a constant reminder of the visitors who came and went, leaving you with nothing but more questions. Then one day, they return. The lead doctor, the one with the intense, bird-like eyes, walks back into your village. He is alone this time, save for his interpreter. He is not here to ask questions. He says he has come to provide answers. He asks for the village elders, for all the people, to assemble. He stands before you all in the village center, and through his interpreter. He begins to speak, and the words he speaks will shatter your world forever. He tells you of his journey after he left your village. He tells you of the brain of the dead woman he took with him. He tries to explain what he did with it. He speaks of a magic eye, a microscope that allowed him to look into the very substance of the brain. He describes what he saw, that the brain was full of tiny, microscopic holes, that it was spongy and diseased, that it was being eaten from within by an invisible sickness, and then he tells you the terrible truth he has discovered. He unrolls a great sheet of paper on which he has drawn the family trees you helped him create. The sickness is not sorcery, the doctor says through his interpreter. It is passed from the dead to the living. It is passed through the funeral feast. A stunned, angry silence falls over your people. This is the ultimate blasphemy. He is telling you that your most sacred ritual, your greatest act of love and remembrance, is the source of your suffering. The doctor continues, his voice calm and insistent. He points to the genealogical charts. Look, he says, see the patterns. A woman dies. Then her sisters fall ill. Then her daughters. The sickness follows the lines of kinship, but only through the women. And their children, he points to you, and the other men of the village. The men do not get this sickness, he says. Why? Because the men do not participate in the feast. It is the women and the children who consume the dead. It is the women and the children who fall ill. The sickness is in the flesh of the dead. And when you eat of that flesh to honor them, you are taking their sickness into yourselves. The specific pattern of the Kuru epidemic, which had been a terrifying mystery, is now laid bare as irrefutable proof. It primarily affects women and children because, in your culture, they are the ones who perform the sacred duty of consuming the dead, and most especially, the brain, where the invisible seed of the disease is most concentrated. The crowd erupts in an uproar of denial and rage. He lies, one of the old warriors shouts. This is a new kind of sorcery he is trying to make us dishonor our ancestors, to leave them to rot in the earth. But you are silent. You look at your own family. You think of your mother. You think of your Aunt Moke. You think of your cousins who are now beginning to stumble and shake. It is true, only the women. Only the ones who had participated in the feasts. The doctor's terrible explanation, as blasphemous and as horrifying as it is, makes a kind of cold, undeniable sense. The doctor raises his hand for silence. I know this is a hard truth, he says. His eyes filled with a surprising sadness. I know this ritual is an act of love for you, but it is a love that is killing you. The only way to stop the shaking sickness, the only way to save your children and your future, is to stop the feasts. You must bury your dead in the ground. It is the only way. And there it is, the impossible choice. You are being asked to choose between the spiritual survival of your ancestors and the physical survival of your children. To follow the new, scientific truth of this stranger. You must abandon the most sacred truth your people have ever known. You must accept that your acts of greatest love for your dead have been acts of poison for your living. You must, in effect, admit that for generations, your people have been accidentally killing themselves out of love. The village is thrown into turmoil. The people are divided. Some cling to the old ways, declaring that they will never abandon their ancestors to the worms, that they would rather die of the kuru than commit such a sacrilege. Others, their faith shattered by the endless, incurable sickness, are willing to consider the doctor's terrible words. You are at the heart of this crisis. You look at your own young daughter, her hands still steady, her laughter still full of joy, and you look at your surviving aunts, who are now beginning to show the first subtle tremors. Another elder in your clan is close to death. Her funeral feast would be a duty that falls to your family. You are faced with a choice that will define the future of your people and your own soul. Do you honor the dead with the sacred rite you have always known and risk consigning your own daughter to the shaking sickness? Or do you perform the unthinkable act of sacrilege, abandoning the elder to the cold ground and risk her eternal wrath, all for the strange, new and unproven promise of a cure from a pale-skinned man with a magic eye? The doctor's words fall like stones into the quiet pool of your village's despair. The truth he has revealed is a poison for which there is no antidote. It pits your most sacred duty against your most primal instinct, to love your dead. You must now poison your living. To protect your living, you must now abandon your dead. The village is thrown into a state of profound and bitter conflict. Some of the elders, their faces set and grim, refuse to believe. They call the doctor a liar, a sorcerer from a strange land who seeks to destroy your people by making you dishonor your ancestors. They cling to the old ways, declaring that they will feast on their dead as their fathers did, and trust in the spirits, not the strange magic of the pale men. Others, however, are broken by the terrible logic of the doctor's explanation. It makes a horrifying kind of sense. It explains why the kuru sickness has only ever touched the women and their children. It explains why the counter-sorcery has failed. Their faith in the old ways is shattered, replaced by a new and terrifying understanding of their world as a place of invisible, physical poisons. The impossible choice is no longer a debate. It becomes a reality. Your mother's sister, your beloved aunt, who has been suffering from the late stages of the kuru, finally dies. Her shaking ceases, and a final, merciful peace settles over her. And your family must now decide, that night, in your family hut. The great argument takes place around your aunt's still body. Your uncle, her husband, is adamant. She will be honored, he says, his voice thick with grief and anger. I will not cast my wife's body into a hole like a dead animal. She was a good woman. Her spirit must be kept safe. We will hold the feast, But your mother's voice, though weak from her own advancing sickness, cuts through his grief. "And who will feast?" she asks, her voice a dry rasp. "Me, your other sisters who already begin to tremble, shall we feed our own deaths? Shall we pass this shaking curse on to our daughters? And their daughters?" She looks at her husband, her eyes clear with a terrible certainty. "The old way is now a path of death. We cannot walk it any longer. You stand with your mother. You speak of the pattern the doctor revealed. You speak of your duty to protect the children who are still healthy. It is the most painful and difficult conversation of your life. You are arguing against love, against honor, against tradition, against the very foundations of your world. The argument rages for hours. But in the end, the evidence of their own eyes, the memory of the dozens of women they have lost, finally breaks through their denial. The heartbreaking decision is made. Your aunt will not be honored with the feast. She will be buried the next day. You perform a ritual for which you have no script, no tradition. It is a strange, empty, and sorrowful affair. The women wash your aunt's body and dress her in her finest string skirt and shell ornaments, as they always have. But the purpose is no longer to prepare her for the communion of the feast. It is to prepare her for an eternal separation. You and your male relatives must now perform a task you have never done before. You must dig a grave. You choose a spot at the edge of her sweet potato garden, a place she loved. The physical act of cutting into the earth with your stone axes and digging sticks feels like a profound violation. This is the earth that gives life, and you are now turning it into a place to abandon the dead, when the hole is deep enough. You carry her shrouded body from the hut. You do not place it on a funeral pyre to be cooked. You lower it into the cold, dark earth. Her family stands around the open grave, their faces a mixture of grief and a deep, unsettling confusion. There are no chants for this. There are no songs. There is only a terrible, awkward silence. An old elder, trying to find meaning in this new, hollow rite, speaks up. "We cannot take her strength into our bodies," he says, his voice wavering. "So we will put her body in the earth she loved. Her spirit will now nourish the soil. Her strength will pass into the sweet potatoes that feed us. She will still be with us." It is a beautiful, desperate attempt to weave the new practice into the fabric of the old beliefs. And then, you must do the final, unthinkable act. You take up a digging stick, and you push the first pile of earth into the grave. The sound of the dirt hitting your aunt's shrouded body is a dull, final thud. It is the sound of goodbye, a sound your people have never had to hear before, after the grave is filled. The family returns to the hut. A peace settles over you, but it is a hollow, empty peace. Your aunt is gone, truly and completely gone, in a way that your grandmother and your other relatives never were. Their spirits are a part of you. Her spirit is now a prisoner of the earth. You have committed a sacrilege to save your family. You have protected the living, but you feel, with a profound and aching sorrow, that you have betrayed your dead. You are caught in an impossible conflict between two kinds of love, two kinds of duty. You look at your own healthy children, who will now be safe from the shaking sickness because of the choice you have made. And then you look at the lonely, unmarked mound of fresh earth in your aunt's garden, and you are filled with a grief so deep and so complex that you have no name for it. The old world is dying, and the new world is a place of terrible, necessary sorrows. The burial of your aunt is a turning point. It is a terrible, quiet, and necessary sacrilege. Your family, by choosing to abandon the sacred feast, has chosen the future over the past, and in the months and years that follow, other families, seeing that your own children remain healthy and strong, begin to make the same heartbreaking choice. The new law of the pale-skinned strangers, empowered by the terrible truth of the doctor's science, slowly takes root. The funeral feasts, once the vibrant spiritual center of your culture, become a secret, fading memory. The years pass. The world changes in ways you could never have imagined. More outsiders come. They bring more laws, more tools, a new religion, and a new school. They bring their own magic, the magic of medicine, which slowly, year by year, defeats the old sicknesses and the shaking sickness. The kuru, with no more feast to transmit its terrible seed, begins to die. It loosens its grip on your people, generation by generation, until it is nothing more than a dark story told by the old. You are an old man now. Your hair is white, your skin is wrinkled, and your own grandchildren now sit at your feet by the fire. They live in a world that is both yours and not yours. They wear the strange clothes of the outsiders. They are learning to read the strange markings of the outsiders' books, and they have never seen a case of kuru. They have never witnessed a funerary feast. It is a story to them, a strange and savage custom of the old time. One evening, your granddaughter, her eyes wide with a modern curiosity, asks you about it. "Grandfather," she asks, "is it true that in the old time you used to eat the dead?" You look at her strong, healthy limbs, at her clear, untroubled eyes, and you know that the impossible choice your parents made was the right one. And you try to explain to her a world that is gone, a belief that she cannot possibly understand. "We did not eat the dead, little one," you say, your voice a soft, reedy whisper. "We ate our love. We ate our grief. We ate our memories." You try to explain to her the great fear you had of the cold. Lonely earth. You explain that to bury a person was to abandon them. "Your great-grandmother," you tell her, "was a strong woman. Her spirit was a fire that warmed our whole family when she died. We could not let that fire go out. We could not let it be smothered by the dirt. So we did our duty. We took her fire, her strength, her wisdom, back inside of us, so that it would keep our own family warm for all the generations to come." You tell her of the profound peace and connection you felt after that first sacred meal. The feeling that your grandmother was not gone, but was a living part of you. But the sickness came, you say, your voice growing quieter. "It was a poison hidden within our greatest act of love, and we were faced with a choice. A choice between the love we owed our ancestors and the love we owed our children. We had to choose whether to keep our dead warm or to keep our living safe." You look at her healthy, vibrant face. "We chose you," you say simply. "We chose to abandon our dead so that you could live. Future historians and anthropologists will write of your people. They will call the end of the funerary feast a great public health victory, a triumph of modern medicine over a dangerous superstition. And they will be right. But you who lived through it know the price of that victory. You know the profound and lingering sorrow of the cultural loss. Your ancestors are now cold in the ground. Their spirits feel distant, separated from you by a wall of earth. The intimate physical communion between the generations is gone. You are grateful every single day that the shaking sickness is gone, but you are also a man in mourning, not just for the people you have lost, but for the sacred, beautiful, and terrible tradition that you were forced to abandon. You have paid an immense price for your survival, the price of love. And so your story, the story of the four people and the shaking sickness, comes to its quiet, bittersweet end. The terrible choice is long past. The kuru is gone. A ghost vanquished not by sorcery, but by a different and more powerful kind of magic, the science of medicine, and the heartbreaking love of a people willing to sacrifice their most sacred tradition for the sake of their children. The memory of that time now fades. The wailing of the mourners, the hollow laughter of the sick, The quiet hum of the diviner's chant, all recede into the deep. Misty silence of the past. The horror of the story is balanced by the quiet triumph of survival. A people faced an impossible choice, and through great sorrow they endured. Let the peace of that endurance now settle over you. There are no terrible choices to be made here tonight. There is no sickness, there is no sorrow, there is only the quiet of your room, the comfort of your bed, and the gentle, healing peace of a story that has found its final, restful end.